poetry, radio, verse. It's all about the D. Desire, discipline, dedication. I know what you were thinking, savages, but that ain't it. Let's go.
Hi, this is Allie. Everyone has their own story.
Hi, this is DG Clearing. Don't make art for the general public. Make art for yourself, and your art will really be good.
Welcome, welcome, and welcome. I am James Hamilton, and this is Versed, Season 1, Episode 3. Versed is here weekly, shining a light on Midwest poets and artists from what we like to call the hub of Midwest poetry here in Rockford, Illinois. WBM Studios, located in the basement of the Mendelssohn Center for the Performing Arts, is where we do what we do. In the studio with me today, I have verse producer and cultural reference and poet, Mr. Savvy Magoo.
Good
How
afternoon.
you doing today, Paul? So before I introduce the guest, I want to tell you something. We've got a segment on here I call Common Thread. We've got two poets in the house, just like we do every week. And I curate that group. I bring poets in together because there is a common thread between the two poets that I bring in. So I'm going to just put it out there and say, think about it while we do the show. And toward the end, I'm going to ask you, what do you think the common thread was between these two poets who have never met before today? Okay, and generally that's how it is. The other thing I'm going to remind you about that is I have cooked all of this up inside my head.
Okay,
Which
Right.
so we gotta figure it out.
As
That's
producer,
messed up place.
exactly.
It is
Paul,
quite the head.
Paul knows, and it's actually been a little fun exercise. Nobody's gotten it right yet.
No,
It is only show 3.
true.
So, most definitely.
Will
Okay.
you let us know by the
Oh,
end?
definitely.
Okay,
Yeah. No, I
sounds
hold that
good.
stuff near and dear to my heart forever.
Okay.
All right, then. So I am excited to introduce, I'm just going to name them. I'm going to let you guys take care of your bios if that's okay. So I've got Ali Arguello, and I've got DG Clearing. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
You know, my name's DG Clearing. I am from the Fox Valley area in Wisconsin, which is Green Bay, Neenah, Menasha, Appleton. I'm an artist. I'm a poet. The two go together. I was a visual artist for many years. I used to do large-scale photography. I used to do pieces that were 60 feet and larger in a non-silver form. I lived out in New York for a while, showed out there, lived in Minneapolis, Key West, been around. I moved back to the Fox Valley area a few years ago to help take care of my parents as they got older. I've been writing seriously and performing since the last 15 years. I've written since I was a kid. My poetry is about truth. It's about exposing lies. It's about myself. It's about a search. It's a search. It's an endless search. It's about past lovers. It's about past friends. It's about our political climate. It's about the butterfly that is landing on the milkweed. It's about so many. Poetry is about passion.
Well said. I don't think I could have said it any better. Allie, tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Gigi, for sharing that. I think I got a little whiff of your, style, and I might get a little hint of why you put us together. I really liked it. I cannot emphasize that better than you did. It seems you're a very descriptive person. You shared with us a little story before this broadcast went on, and it sort of reminded me of me sometimes. But yeah, my name is Allie, and I've also been around. I am 21 years old, but if you get to know me and see me in person, you would think I'm like a 35-year-old person. I am very much of an old soul, and I've definitely been around. I had to grow up. My ethnicity is Latina, specifically Ecuadorian. Shout out to all my people from back home. Ecuador is a very small country. And yeah, so a little bit about me is I was born in New Jersey, but I grew up in New York. I grew up in New York for a couple of years. I grew up in Harlem. I grew up there. My dad was in the military. And then after that, I moved to Ecuador and lived there for almost a decade. I am trilingual. My mom forced me to learn French, and then Spanish just came along with family. And then I moved out here, lived in Dallas for a time, lived in West Palm Beach, and then somehow ended up here in Rockford, Illinois. And I would like to call myself an artist and a poet because everyone around me has called me that. But I feel like I have a lot to learn, and I'm still very much learning. I showed up in this scene like 3 months ago. Like, it's been very, very recent. Out of nowhere. It recently started with me writing a story. So I am very much a descriptive person. In one of my poems, I described how I wrote a 52-page letter to my former partner. And that just shows like kind of the person that I am, that I go very much in depth. And just like you said, I think poetry is passion. And I think we all come here and we should just be full of ourselves. I think nothing should stop us, and we should be our own person. Not too much. I was scared to send it. 52 pages plus my voice on tape. Love and layers edited at 3:45 a.m. like I was brushing my heart's hair so it looked more presentable. But the truth, no matter how I wrote it, I was still scared it would be too much. Too emotional, too honest, too soft, too sad, too serious, too late. Too everything you never asked but I gave anyway, because that's what it means to feel deeply. To remember the small details, even when the person who caused the pain forgets what they said to cause the storm. You asked me why I blocked you. You couldn't remember, and I hated that I had to explain my pain just to prove it was real, like I had to earn my right to the boundaries. But I remember everything. The way you dismissed me on that call, the silence that didn't come from peace but from punishment, the way I stayed gentle even when I was breaking, and I almost didn't send that letter. Not because it wasn't true, but because I was afraid it would scare you, make me look unstable, like someone who loves too hard or wants too much. But then I wrote this. I'm not too much. And I read it again and again and again until I believed it. No, I'm not too much. I'm not too loud, too needy, too broken. I'm not too intense or too messy to love. I just love thoroughly. I don't hold back. And that's not a flaw. It's a feature, a fingerprint, a proof that I was here fully. If you've ever written a message you never sent, cried over someone who forgot the last thing they said, or poured your soul into a gesture only to be met with silence, you are not too much. If you've ever blocked someone to protect your peace and then unblocked them because the heart is inconsistent but still honest, you are not too much. If you've ever stayed up rereading what you wrote, wondering if your words were worth it, they were. You were. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say the thing you're most afraid, and maybe it will push someone away, and if it does, let them walk. Let them go, because anyone who sees your truth as too much was never prepared for all that you are. But the right ones, they'll never call your love a burden. They'll call it a gift. Just getting to share that story because there is someone out there that will resonate with you. And it's something that I invited someone out to the open mic that we recently had, and I told him, I was like, dude, you got your own story. I'm like, I'm sure someone else can relate to you. I was like, and then if you can put in just a way, people just empathize with you and you'll be heard, and people will appreciate your story. I think, everyone has their own story, and sometimes you put yourself there and what you learn, and that can be a shortcut to someone else's path. each individual, we have our own perspective, our own paradigms. So it's just a journey of your story. My pieces of poetry have mostly been about my former relationship, how I recently went through this breakup. It's been the biggest thing, but it's something that I've been wanting to share for a long time. And I think I've found a way to put it into sometimes some playful words.
That's great.
So I
I
think
want to
that's
read
a
that
little bit.
52-page letter.
Actually,
Yeah.
Actually, funny you mentioned that. What some of the listeners don't know is that when you guys come in, we record a couple of pieces. We do have 52 pages recorded.
James,
Not
when you
too
started
much.
that, I was afraid you were going to go, because you've done this on stage yourself, you're going to flip, and here the 52-page letter. I got it.
Right. I've seen him do
Just-
that. Yeah, pretty incredible.
I have,
So,
I have done
yeah.
that. Yeah. What
You
they
know,
were,
part of art though is constantly learning. It's I'm a few years older than you, but I constantly learn. When you stop learning, that's the death of yourself.
agreed.
So
The
I
thing
like
that
that.
stood out to me when you were explaining it to your friend and you're saying if it affected you, it will resonate with somebody else. And I think that's the thing, the way that I go through this and trudge through this poetry journey is saying authenticity. I can do James Hamilton better than anyone else can do James Hamilton. And you do Arguello and you do DG Clearing. Paul does his best. to be
Whatever
a
he does.
great candle poet of Winnebago County.
Yeah.
Or whatever it takes. But you know what I'm saying? If we stay true to ourselves and authentic, it will resonate with somebody, and each of our voices are important. And I think that's a big way to go.
pencil eyes. You stared at me with those pencil eyes, and all I could think about was the silence of the music. As I stood there with $1 in my hand and a pocket full of change. It was so cold inside. My body shook. It shook from the frostbite of your words. You told me you no longer loved me. Tipping my hat to hide the tears of my heart. I felt all alone, riding on the plains of loneliness. Walking out the door, watching you over my shoulder, I could see the very smirk on your face as your new flame put their arm around your waist, pulling you in like a calf on a rope, not knowing just how wild and untamed you are. Like a stallion gone crazy, a stallion gone crazy with the fever. Now that's all left of me. Now that's all left of me are the words. Now that's all left of me are the words in a song on Tin Pan Alley. Where the down and out beg. They beg for $1. They beg for $1. They beg for $1 a quarter. They beg for $1 a quarter or a dime.
You inspired me, I think, when we all went out for coffee. Paul and you, James, you inspired me, I think it was like the next day or like 2 days after, to write my story about how I lived in New York. Like, you inspired me, because that was my first piece ever about me and not about like my feelings and how I learned something from this breakup. It was about the situation I actually lived in, and I talked about how I don't have an accent and I do not look as if I were not.
Right?
I
That's
get
its own accent.
okay. I also described the domestic violence that I lived through with my mom and how we survived. We came from nothing, living in a town, a city like New York City.
Right.
Where-
So
where'd you
it's
live
just
in New York?
I lived in Harlem on 116th.
Okay, Spanish Harlem or what street?
116th.
Okay, I lived on
Yeah.
145th.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. But yeah, I lived there for a good amount of times, and then we moved from shelter to shelter.
Oh, really?
Constantly.
Oh,
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, until
That's a hard thing to do in any place, but New York, it's really tough.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. We
Wow.
went to the outskirts of New Jersey, and then after the divorce was finalized, my mom wanted to take a break. We went to live in Ecuador, and
Huh?
I was there. Yeah.
You have family down there that you stayed with?
Yeah, we're both my parents are from there.
Okay.
So yeah, but we went there, and then when I was 16, I made the hard decision to leave all my friends. It was gonna be my senior year of high school, and
Oh
I
my
decided to leave and come here to the States to give myself a quote unquote better future
Okay.
for me and then my family.
And did you come
Because
to Rockford then, or?
no, I moved to Texas.
Oh, okay.
I lived there in Dallas for a year. And that same year, my family moved up to Rockford. They got a house. And then when our release ended in Dallas, I just moved up here. And then doors have been opening
There we go.
up.
Yes,
I think,
very exciting.
yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
it's
yes.
been
Very
great.
cool. Allie mentioned that she had coffee or around breakfast time with Paul Savvy Magoo and myself a few weeks ago. So you may not know, and nobody here may know. Glad that we inspired you. I'm glad that we were able to kind of provide a mentorship. That is what DG did for me. I don't know if you know
thank
that
you.
or if any of these guys do, but I would probably not be a spoken word performer anyway.
I do have to stop you right there.
Yeah.
You've mentioned it about 50 times in the lead up to DG coming down here.
That's
So yes, I'm
but
aware.
that's-
Recently,
is-
to me, no. I just heard that he just told me, Paul,
Yeah.
outside when you guys were
Right.
recording, that he was your mentor.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
that's great. But yeah, no, I did
And
not
we
know.
did. We met at a thing, and I remember we went down to Linneman's in Milwaukee
Right,
in the
right.
car. And I remember him asking me, he asked me, what do you want to do with your writing? And at the time I think I had just dropped my second book. I think I said something like, which was at the time very James Hamilton to say, was I just want to write and stay home and have people buy my shit, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, not a good plan. He's like, not a good plan. You know, and I said, you mean I got to get out and read? He goes, no, you have to get out and perform.
Part of the arts, part of the community is bringing people along to mentor them, to foster them in their arts, to influence them. And James isn't the only poet or artist that I've tried to help along. But if I see someone who's interested, I try to nudge him a little bit. I might bring him to a couple readings. Years ago I'd bring people to museums. I used to have an old church in Minneapolis, so that was my studio. I'd bring artists over, and we'd drink a lot of Jack and maybe smoke a few other things. And create art,
Awesome.
but that's part of it. I'm not a recluse. I'm pretty forward in my art. So thank you for thinking of me, James. I appreciate
Definitely,
that.
yeah, thank you. And the thing is that seeing that and having gratitude for that and the example that you provided in that and the confidence that you gave me to do what I do is kind of how I move with young artists such as Allie and a few other people here in Rockford. Paul Savvy Magoo can tell you our Minneapolis church is essentially your house, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and
Nice,
we
nice.
call it the Blue Box.
But I think of it now as the Poets Clubhouse.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it is. He's been really open with his doors and stuff. People come down to do verse. They'll stay at the house. Every quarter we do a
Artist hangout.
artist
Okay.
hangout.
Okay.
Nice.
And
I kind
it's
of like the little New Eurekan of Rockford.
Yeah.
I don't know New Yorican well enough, just from what James has told me, but I'll take whatever
actually
you
it's
put
eye
on me.
level, like what I hear the old Miguel. You know how they used to
Right.
people upstairs.
He had a poet's house.
It's-
Right?
yeah.
And I've got 3
Yeah.
spare bedrooms, except when James is in town, then I've got 2 spare bedrooms.
Okay.
James
okay.
Hamilton Suite,
Nice.
mind you. Just saying. There is no name on the door yet, but
do you
there's
get maid service
there's
or?
a business. Actually, we do.
Oh, nice.
We do, and there's a bidet, and when people come over, I tell
Uh-huh.
them, I introduce them to her, and then I tell them that we're going steady.
Oh,
True
It happened
story.
quick. It happened really quick. I'm just gonna say, happened really.
But it's not
quick.
exclusive. I can't let that be exclusive. Other people can use the bidet.
Yeah.
We'll talk about.
Yeah,
that.
you'll talk
But
about
New Eurekan Poets Cafe, they famous poets club in New York.
One of, if not one of the most famous poetry cafes in the country, if not in the world. Originally started by a gentleman by the name of Miguel Aguilera and some of his friends. They used to They used to meet at his house and they'd read poetry. You get excited about poetry when people read. So they'd read and, they'd clap and they'd yell and, they'd make a lot of noise and the poets would get excited and Miguel would get evicted.
Yep.
And he would get evicted again, and he would get evicted again. So finally what happened is Miguel came up, this is a New Eurekan thing. New Eurekan is New Puerto Rican. New York, Puerto Rican is New Eurekan. And it's a movement that started back in the 60s and 70s. And Miguel finally had the poets do is they would snap their fingers. Snap, 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 snap. And that's where it came from. The snap was excitement. And, you go to poetry readings or you
show your approval without
your approval or you go to a concert or you go to a reading of some type, people snap their fingers. And that's all, think of that. You're doing that for excitement, and you're doing that so Miguel didn't get evicted out of his next place.
Beautiful.
Nice.
True story.
Finally, Miguel found a space called the New Eurekan's Poets Cafe on the Lower East Side. It's being renovated right now.
Right, they've been closed since they closed Halloween.
18 months ago about.
Yeah.
It'll be opened next spring, I think. I was just out there and read at the Bowery's New Eurekan Slam. And somebody from the New Eurekan said that they're planning on spring or early summer of next year. So
a poet that we both know from, because DG turned me on to the show. They have a online, and I should turn you on to this, Allie, because they would love you. Definitely. I mean, what was I going to say? Oh, Frog Corpse was the guy that I met through that broadcast. And he called me 2 weeks ago and invited me out. So Gonzo Fest, as Hunter Thompson's thing,
it's the ultimate beatnik fest,
Yeah, it's happening in New York next year in July, and they invited me to come out and headline at one of the evening venues. That's
very,
happening.
very exciting. Portrait. Sitting on the stool, I watched you paint my portrait, and with each stroke, you captured another part of me. You sketched me at the street fair as I looked at the paintings in your booth, then handed it to me with your number on the back. We had a simple meal at the cafe. Bread, cheese, and wine. It's what artists eat to feed their inspirations. We talked for hours. You told me how beautiful I was, and moved the hair away from my eyes, positioned my arms and legs, and draped a cloth. You draped a cloth around my waist. As I trembled, I trembled. We never even kissed. And now I'm letting you see me. Yeah, I'm letting you see me exposed and vulnerable in the very virtue of my innocence. I have never given my soul. I have never given my soul before to anyone. Your work is so powerful. You are so strong. The only thing I can do is to submit to you.
All right, so let me ask you a couple of questions. So I've got some stuff here. These are just notes. Yeah, and I want to ask you about your artistic.
Me?
Yeah, I do.
Like how I get to writing what I...
Let me tell you a quote. It's a quote from Robert Henry. It says, "The goal is not to make great art, but rather to live a creative life that makes great art inevitable." I know you're tired of hearing that, Paul Savvy Magoo.
I love it.
But tell me how you live a creative life, or how does your art metabolize?
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, I guess it comes from being overwhelmed with my emotions. I was always taught, I feel like in the Latino community, you're always taught to treat everyone with respect, never go against what anyone says, bow your head down and just be like, okay, and move on. and, you know, not have your voice like truly heard because you don't want to disrespect someone. And when you inspired me to write that piece, the accent that I don't have, I say there what my mom would tell me, like, Allie, like, you know, bow your head down and like just keep going what you're doing, you know, because if not, you're not going to get to where you're trying to go. Like if you rebel against someone, you know. And it's just it's hard because that turned me into a people pleaser, and it's gets so overwhelming. Like it's so, I'm tired of just carrying other people's emotions on my back.
So is your poetry your vent then? Is poetry your outcropping, your rebellion?
Yes, it's my rebellion, and I want to like let my, so every time I read, it's like I'm like about to cry, or like I'm just so frustrated, like I relive my emotions through my poetry, and it's just my way of letting you guys in on like how I'm feeling as a person and how you would put yourself in my shoes and look at it from my point of view.
So are you writing for yourself, or are you writing for other people?
That's a great question. There are some where I write for myself. I actually wrote that down for myself because I write how I remind myself that I'm not too much for someone, how my feelings are not too much and they should never be too much, that the right person will appreciate that gift and they will be understanding. Yeah, it's definitely alongside with the taste of regret. It just, a lot of people resonate because, you know, they're told like dim down your emotions, you know, like why are you feeling so much? Especially women, we're so led on with our feelings that we're like, no, like tone it down, or like, why are you crying when you get frustrated, or why are you crying when you get angry, like, you know, all these things.
I like to cry. I'm good at crying.
And I think that's sort of like my process. And I used to try to, most of my poems are very long, like 3+ minutes, because I would try to be descriptive as possible because I want people to actually understand. And that's why recently at this recent open mic, I didn't do that. My poems were under 2 minutes, and
Yeah,
it's
that was
because
stunning.
yeah, I know
I was like, wait a minute.
it was
Who
very
is this?
it was very blunt, very direct to the point, because I found myself that in my other poems where I'm very descriptive and just over like too much, was because I wanted people to understand me, because I've always been told that they don't understand me. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to be straight up. I don't need to sugarcoat anything. I'm just going to let me be me. And I wrote it, and it was just straight to the point, very blunt. And it was like in under 2 minutes. The taste of regret. I have something to confess, ladies and gentlemen. I finally kissed someone else today. Never would I have thought I'd put myself in this situation, most definitely not after asking you if you'd already been with somebody else. But now the question hangs like smoke in a room. What if he asks me the same thing? I can't lie, I have now, and that truth is a stone I'll carry if you ever come back. That part of me, that one and only knew you, is now blurred, marked by hands that didn't know where to touch, but by lips that moved like they had something to prove, not something to feel. But maybe this is what healing looks like when it limps, when it crawls into the wrong arms just to feel a flicker of warmth. I thought maybe comfort could come from curiosity, or at least distraction. I thought maybe his face could be yours if I closed my eyes hard enough, but it wasn't. He looked like you for half a heartbeat, and in that moment, my mind betrayed me. He asked if we should test it out to see if it really felt that wrong, but I stopped him right before our lips could meet. He ignored my force to stop him and kissed me anyway, like no didn't mean what it used to, and it lasted only seconds, but it was already too late, too much. I can't go back now. I can't say I haven't kissed anyone else, because I have now, but I promise I said no and I meant it. But curiosity's a funny thing. It crawls uninvited, dressed like reason, murmuring it's for the sake of the experiment, scribbling consents on parts of me I wasn't done protecting, and I signed anyway with my mouth. And I said, what if I
lean in, as if that would somehow change the taste of something already bitter. And so I kissed him twice, once out of confusion and once out of guilt, and neither time felt anything like home. He kissed me like a question when he used to kiss me like an answer. Then his hand found my thigh, and I felt everything all at once. The mistake, the shame, the distance between healing and hiding, and I immediately pulled away and ended the night with no words left to say. We haven't spoken since. I let go of a friend to reach for someone who was already gone. But the worst part, it made me miss you more, because I still remember that night when it was just you, when the world outside stopped moving and we laid on that floor with nothing but our hands and heartbeats, the way you looked at me like I was the only girl in the world, like you already knew how I liked to be held. How we kissed, slowly, laughing between breaths. Your fingertips weren't curious, they were certain. They traced me like they'd done it in another lifetime. It wasn't lust, it wasn't confusion, it was safety. It was magic. And for a second I believed in forever. But now, forever feels so far from reach, and I'm stuck here with someone else's taste still on my lips, wishing I never mistook ache for permission. But there are nights I wonder what I'll say if you ever ask me, if you'll ever look at me the same way I looked at you, with hope and just enough hurt. But I will tell you the truth, because you deserve it, because even in your absence I still wanted to be yours, but I wasn't. Not in that moment, maybe not ever, and I hated that. I hated that more than the kiss.
The problem is people don't ask questions.
Right.
You know, if we would go out for coffee, you know, I mean, we could do it here too, but it would take hours and hours. I would ask you so many questions about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and in return, I would expect you to ask me so many questions about myself. That's what I think art is. You know, be it a painting or a drawing or a sculpture or words. It's conversation. It's like, I'm sharing this with you. That doesn't mean I have to answer your questions, but I want your questions.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, curious about this. How much experience did you have with poetry before you started writing? You could take that however you want to, with actual just poems reading, or did you have favorite poets, like an Andrea Gibson or something like that you looked up to?
I think I'm going to say I'm very much ignorant when it comes to all that. I do not know. I very much just wrote, like I told you, I was very much a storyteller. I have a story where it's literally called My Story About Love. And I described from the very first time I ever had feelings for someone. And I was 11 at the time. And I just described, it does. I think it's over like 30 pages now. But it describes not every interaction I had, but the people that impacted and how they shaped my life. So like from the first person that I kissed, or the first person that told me they loved me, or the first person, you know, I had my first time, or just all those stuff. And then especially now that I had like my very first actual like relationship, because being Latina in the United States, it's like, oh my gosh, you're so exotic. You know, I want to get to know you. And what's your, let me hear you roll your R's and your Spanish. And it's like I'm some like rare person, but I'm like, no. And so it's just, I write about all that. Recently, I really like to listen to poets. I think Voice of Poets, I think it's called, on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
And then I found out about Right About Now poetry. I went to their event.
Nice.
And there was just one day where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take one fragment of that story that I wrote and just put it together. And then that's when I wrote in the Facebook, like, 815, what are you, Rockford, doing? And then I was like, you know what? I want to see if there's any open mics after I went to the Right About Now poetry, because I was like, there has to be something in here. Nice. And Paul answered, and he was like, oh, there's actually one coming up this week. And it was, so I was...
So the poem that you wrote when you were 11, and it's 30 pages now, do you keep on adding to that?
Yeah, so actually I wrote that when I was... 18.
Okay.
So I wrote that. I retraced back, and I put my, like, I really did a dig deep. I put myself in that and just
You
wrote
know,
and wrote.
inspiration for you here, maybe all of us, a little history. You know that song Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, incredible Canadian poet?
Okay.
There's 300 and plus verses to that.
I've heard.
You know, he just constantly added on verses. It's so incredible that poem sometimes never ends. You know,
Definitely.
it just
Yeah.
never ends. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, you actually remind me. I wrote a poem that literally said, like, there's not an ending. And, like, I wrote with my intention of leaving the audience and the reader frustrated
Nice.
that
nice.
there's not an ending. You know?
Nice.
Because sometimes
nice.
there just should not be an
Yeah,
ending.
frustration can really bring inspiration. So I think we've all been there, just at the peak.
Sometimes I get that frustration energy, and it might be a piece. It's not, but let's say it's a piece about teddy bears. But because I wrote it angry,
Right.
you can feel. People have told me you can feel the energy that I had when I wrote it, even though the subject matter doesn't match. The style.
I can just
Yeah.
imagine what your teddy bear looks like.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
The quiet didn't kill me. I used to think silence meant I'd fade. Like love had left and taken me away. Who was I without your voice on my phone? I just laid in bed, waiting alone. I stopped making plans. I stopped being me. I paused my whole life just for your uncertainty. I used to pray for us every night, but now I pray for peace and strength to fight. I would call you on no caller ID just to hear your voice say hello to me, even when I knew it wasn't right. But I missed your voice more than I missed the light. You were the storm I learned to stand in. The echo of your name I kept expanding, and it's true. I wrote you letters, soft and raw, hoping you'd read them and finally saw. But love isn't proven through pain and delay, and silence is loud when there's nothing left to say. You blocked me again like the past wasn't true, but I thank God you're no longer what I cling to. I used to apologize just to breathe, dimmed down my thoughts so you wouldn't leave, laughed a little less, went out even less, dressed like a ghost of the girl I used to repress. God, I hated her. I forgot that I used to dance without fear, speak my whole mind without wiping a tear. I once believed love should make me feel seen, not shrink me down just to keep the peace clean. So I lost a woman who didn't chase. I lost a woman who didn't wait hours just to save face. But now I remember her. I remember her smile, her fire. She's walking again, climbing out of that mire. You see, you didn't bring me close to God above. You brought me to doubt, not holy love. But now I breathe in scripture instead, and Colossians 3 is where I'm led. Say your heart's on things above, not below, and definitely not on boys who don't help you grow. But I was too busy worshiping you and wondering if I was enough. I was focused on the wrong kingdom, built altars for a love that lacked real wisdom. But God doesn't ghost. God doesn't make me beg. His love doesn't walk on a shattered leg. He doesn't make me wonder what I did wrong. He sings over me like a steady song. I don't have to prove I'm worthy to him, even on days when my faith feels dim. He held me when silence broke me apart and stitched my every prayer into brand new art. So no, I won't die from letting you go. I've survived the quiet and I've let it flow. This time, I won't lose myself in your name again, because I'm learning to love me just the same way again. When I moved back here from Ecuador, it was very hard. I went to a private school for my senior year, very blessed. My mom did a lot of sacrifices for me. And I was put in AP English, okay? I was out of the country for like almost a decade, and I got back into AP English. I was failing every single assignment, every single like analysis that I needed to do on like old books and poetry. I remember I needed to, we were practicing for the AP test for poetry. I wrote what I was, thinking about understanding. I took all of that, the verses of the poem, too like literal. And my teacher was like, Allie, like, this is completely wrong. Like, this is completely wrong. She was like, I do not see you passing the exam. Like, she was like, she told me, like, you are terrible at this. Like, do not even keep trying. And then it made me feel so insecure. And so, like, there's no way I can never write.
Yeah, so,
and,
sometimes teachers are the worst influence on your writing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
English teachers.
I think teachers. I think teachers have a form style that they write to, and when you go out of that, you're outside of their box, and they
They're
don't
gonna hammer you back.
They want you back in, and it's like, don't let me back in.
Yeah, they want you to fit that norm.
It's like, I took writing classes years ago in college and stuff, but I don't like to go to workshops. I don't mind doing a workshop,
Right.
but I don't like going to workshops because I don't want their influence. I like my writing. I work hard on my words. I work hard on my art. Going to an open mic, that's my influence.
I agree.
Reading poetry is my influence, but I don't want to be influenced by somebody telling me this is how I should write.
Right.
I like my art.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that stood out to me. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. When I wrote my first book, I was like you. Somebody could ask me, they'd say, wow, this sounds a lot like Jack Kerouac or somebody like that, and I would say, okay, cool, but I didn't know who that was, and I didn't know what their style was. I didn't know anything about any of that. And I think to some extent, even today, the stuff that I do and the authenticity with which I perform, I think what I do is wholly unique to me, as I do with each one of you guys, which is not a hint. So I find it interesting. What I will say is, once I started performing, I did go out and I became hungry to learn more about my craft. When it became obvious that this was going to be like a viable, I don't even want to say career because it's so programmed.
Do you consider it a craft, or do you consider it an art?
I consider it an art. Yeah,
Okay.
it's an art. I mean, it's an art, but there's crafting that takes place. So let me say it, the muse talking to me and me penning something and writing a piece out, that is art. Editing is craft.
Yeah.
And I despise both of those words. I'm just going to say, for sure.
Faded colors. I saw you on the floor of our abandoned apartment in a black t-shirt and shorts, splattered with paint. You ignored me. Then you got up and started painting, cutting in the walls with a brush, rolling over the stains and faded colors, masking what was there. I watched as that cheap paint bled through with your escapades and conquerings of our neighbors and at the bar. As your lies ran down the walls, dripping onto the floor. You should have put a tarp down to catch the splattering, the very splattering of your deceit. Instead, your infidelities left blemishes. They left blemishes on the floor for everyone to see. The damages of your treachery.
Let me ask you this. Allie is just starting out. I know you haven't heard her read yet, but I take it from me, she's
I can imagine.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for her going forward? Somebody like her who was coming into poetry. You've heard a little bit about her now. What would you tell her?
It depends where you want to go with it. Art is, if you want to bring it public, if you want to bring your art public, it's a state of rejection, and people are going to put you down, and your art is good. There's a few that get on the pinnacle and get picked up by a known publisher, a better known publisher, but that doesn't happen very often. You have to stay true to yourself. You have to stay true to your art, and don't produce it. Don't make art for the general public. Make art for yourself, and your art will really be good. You know, and if you do get that brass ring, if a publisher picks you up, listen to them. Take your work and put it out there for people to see if you want the public to see. You know, send it to publishers. Send it to a new anthology that's out there. You know, I can send out 100 poems and I can get 100 rejections, or I can send out 100 poems and maybe I get 2 or 3 acceptances. You know, I keep on performing and you know, I keep on doing my art. You know, my art is my drug. Back in my 20s, 30s, you know, I did a lot of drugs, probably more than most people do in their lives, and I don't do them anymore. And now I do my writing. My writing's my drug. It's like an injection, and it's like like smoking a joint. It's like, and it feels so good. And when I perform. When you perform, I know you've got the hook. I know you've got the I can hear it in your voice and what you've told us. It's like, it feels so incredible. And I'm not a slam person. You know what poetry slams are?
Yeah, I think the second time ever I presented was at the Poetry Slam here in Rockford.
And you placed.
And I placed.
Yeah.
She stunned us all.
Nice.
She was essentially an unknown, and she was up there on the podium, and we're all like, ooh.
Yeah, and I placed.
You know, I'm not a slam person. I've done a few slams, but I just like doing I don't like competition poetry. I'm not a competitive poet, but it's fun to watch. You know, just do it for yourself and present it. You know, that's what I say.
I like that.
You
Yeah.
know?
And she was like, Allie, all those poets were amazing. Like what they say is beautiful and so profound, but you have to know how to deliver it. I feel like if you gave some of the pieces to other poems, you know, let's say James or me, and I read their poems, I would captivate the speaker like just like that, because it's just how you deliver it too, you know? I feel like that's something really big, and I love to do that. I feel like I love to be a very like express myself type person and just like emotions. Learning my ABCs without you. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. I used to sing all the way through, but now I stop at J. Like your name is the end of me. You called me last week. Your voice was soft, too soft. Like you knew I'd panicked, but hoped I wouldn't. You tried to be funny, then forgot the punchline. Said something about opportunities in D&D, but I wish you were right, that I missed your call. But the truth is, you're blocked. Not out of hate, but out of survival, because every time I hear your name, my self-respect leaps out the window, like a wish blown into the wind, never granted. It's like a disease, it's like I'm infected with you, a simple letter, J. I've called so many times, left voicemails you'll never hear, since you don't check them. Especially not the blocked ones, because I know I'm blocked. But still, I call. Still, I text. Still, I hope. Even though I fear picking up the phone because I know you won't call back. You're always there when you want to be, and I'll always be here even when I don't want to be. I'll run it back. You're always there when you want to be, and I'll always be here even when I don't want to be, and I hate you. I hate you with such a passion it singes that every soft part of me. I hate that you'll never be my person. I hate that you won't change, won't love me the same way I love you, and I hate that someday you'll be someone else's, my love. That you'll get a version of you I used to pray for. I hate that you're not the romantic I yearned for you to be, that you don't yearn for me, that you don't miss me like I miss you. And I hate that I keep giving you grace when you don't even ask for it, when you don't even need it. And I hate, God, I hate that I'm writing you another letter, last one, I promise. But most of all, I hate that I can't hate you because I love you. K is for the kindness I gave too freely. L is for letting go, finally. M is for me, mourning the version of you I made up. N is for no. And O is for over. A, B, C, D. I used to sing all the way through, but now I just stop at J.
Let me just point out. So we have an addition to that. Do you got that mic check, Paul?
Yep. She's
Pam?
good.
You check.
Check.
Pam Walsh walked into the studio
Hey,
here.
Pam.
She was
Hello.
Pam,
Nice to see you.
sitting out in the green room. She was here. So we record these shows. We drop them weekly in the fall, but we record these shows in bunches. So Pamela was on episode 2, and she happened to still be in town today. So she just came into the studio and say hi to everybody. So welcome, Pamela. We're just
Hello.
you're familiar because you've been here before. So, and we're just we're getting to the point where we're going to be wrapping up. But
Well, before we go on,
yeah.
the thing about Pam,
Yeah.
Pam is the motorcycle poet.
Yes.
She rode her bike down all the way from north central Wisconsin all the way to Rockford. It's like pretty incredible.
The blue box was especially cool yesterday
Yeah.
because it was the first time anybody in our neighborhood.
Wow.
I
Wow.
felt
Yeah.
cool kids.
Yeah.
Cool kids. We were
Yeah.
definitely the cool kids.
I would ride on the tail of your bike with you.
You'd have to fight my dog for it.
Oh,
She does it. She has pictures after the show. We'll have to have her show you. She has a German Shepherd Husky mix that rides on the back.
oh
of
my
her
gosh.
motorcycle.
Does he have goggles?
Yes.
Nice. Do you have a little
Nice.
black helmet?
I do have one for him, but I
Yeah.
don't have pictures of that on him.
Okay.
Nice.
Very cool. It's so good to have you here, Pam.
Yeah.
Nice. Anything you want to say to the artist today? I mean, say you've been here before. We have not gotten as far as the common thread yet. So let's.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I came in while you were talking. I'm sorry, your
Allie.
name, Allie.
Me, yes.
Well, you were talking about speaking somebody else's poem for them, and how you express it will captivate them. I have been asked a few times to do that with somebody else's poem, somebody who isn't used to speaking it out loud, and they feel like they would just drone and read, and they wanted it expressed differently, so they would give it to me to read out loud. And every time that I do that, it blows me away their reaction to it because I'm still new to this. But a cold read from me, they feel is better than how they would read it, which always blows me away every time.
What do you mean by cold read?
Never looked at the poem before in my life, and I just verbally read it
Okay.
out loud in a live room on TikTok.
Okay.
And yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I have only ever read. So I read somebody else's poem or somebody else's piece once in my life, and it was right after Jimmy Buffett died. I read "Tough Times
Okay.
Don't Last."
Yeah.
at a
Really?
gig. Yeah, and it was the only time that I've ever done that.
Wow,
I
I-
made the mistake of trying to perform a James Hamilton play,
Did.
Stupid Love,
Dressed like a clown.
and I could
Yeah,
not
I think
pull it off.
I think I was there when
I
you
could
did.
not pull it off.
Yeah. No,
He's
I've
got his own unique style.
I've got
Yeah.
I've got the scars that are mentioned in that poem. That's probably why.
Yeah.
You know.
that's how I actually started. I would watch the videos from Voice of Poets. Ciara Chantel, she is such a great poet, and I really liked some of the stuff that she said. I started at Rock Valley. I did it once. I read, it was just like this little, we were like 3-4 students. They're like, oh, we're having an open mic or whatever you want to read. And I got up on the podium, and I read 2 of them to get into the habit, and then but it's I think that's what motivated me too to write my own.
Nice. Before we get to the common thread at the end, you guys been thinking.
Totally.
Yeah,
But before we
of
do that, I got
course.
something we do here too. It's the last word, so I'm gonna give you guys a shot because we're gonna end on the common thread. We follow the rules.
Professionally.
Yeah.
Professionally. I don't know so much about that, but we follow the rules. Anything that you want to say to the listeners at WBOM Full Service Radio or the public, to anybody at large, the Lord, whoever else it is, now's the time to get it out. So it's the last word, and we're gonna let you do it first, Allie.
I like that. I definitely thank God for this opportunity. I don't think I would be here if it weren't for everything that he put me through. And I've just gotten closer with my relationship with him. As you guys have heard, I've mentioned a couple of Bible verses throughout my poetry as well. I think the biggest thing for the audience out there is to be yourself and be full of it. Never half class, always be full of it. Drown someone if you have to, but just always be full of it and tell your story. Definitely tell your story. it will catch the right audience. You know, someone told me no to my pieces of writing, and next thing I know, I'm sharing my story, and everyone is relating to it, at least here as of right now.
Please don't drown anyone. We like having you around.
That's a James Hamilton mood if
Well,
I've ever heard it.
You know what I was gonna say? So we have a group of poets here in Rockford. We call ourselves the Murder of Poets. Because
Allie's a murder of poets,
right.
member.
And
Yeah.
the Poe thing, and the crows, a flock of crows is called a murder. But unintentionally, murder has been like a theme on this show. Yesterday we were talking about stabby girls. Last word for DG Clearing.
Years ago, I was out in New York, and I used to show with Andy Warhol, and he's probably one of the biggest inspirations that I have in my life. And his work was just, it is what it is. It's just out there, be it a soup can or Onassis or just simple silk screens. And that's what poetry is. You verse yourself, you do a writing. It's just what it is. It's the truth. Warhol was about the truth. My work is about the truth and listening. My last word is listen.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Beautiful. All right, so let's go to the common thread. You want to take a whack at it, Pam? What do you think the common thread is between DG and Allie?
Gendered. No.
What?
How about age?
Now, hold up.
Pamela, if you're
Age.
going there, let's do age.
Yeah, there we go.
Holy moly. Paul Savvy Magoo, producer Paul Savvy Magoo, what's your guess?
Clarity, descriptive power. I've seen both of that in their work.
You guys have a guess? Allie, DG?
Do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
I think passion. I think that's the biggest
That's a good one. That's a good
I
one.
think
That's a good
passion
one.
and transparency.
Yeah, I would agree that it's passion, such passion. In that passion that there's that not just the passion for words, but the passion for people, the passion for understanding, the passion no matter who you are and what you look like, the beauty that you find in every individual and everything that you see.
I love that.
I think that's what our common thread is.
I love that.
So again, the common thread comes from up here in James Hamilton, in my head. So the common thread between you guys today is that you're both role models. DG has been a role model to me and so many in the community, and I feel like you have that same potential to fit in those shoes later on. You have.
I don't think later on. I think she's already a role model. I have to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree.
But not only for young ladies, but you've been, like you said, you're an old soul. You've been through a lot, and using your authentic voice to share with people who are coming behind you. I see you as a leader in that community and a role model for people, not even past art. This is about being a role model. Is about life. I've had conversations with DG where he's helped me through things that had nothing to do with art. That was the common thread that I thought of when I paired you guys up together.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
That
I
was
think
amazing.
all four of you nailed it in terms of common
Thanks.
threads.
I feel we all got along, and it was very, very much fluid conversation.
Excellent.
Just kept going.
Yeah. It was great being here, James. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you
I
so much for
appreciate it.
having me. Thank you so much for having us.
Definitely. Thank you, DG Clearing. Thank you, Ali Arguello. Thanks, Pam Walsh, for just coming in. Coming in and taking a guess and saying what you said. So from the team here at Verse, they got Twan Suggs. We got producer Paul Savvy Magoo. I'm James Hamilton at WBOM Full Service Radio. We are signing off. Peace out.
This is Paul Savvy Magoo Goddard with Versed on WBOM Full Service Radio. This is my original narrative verse open mic date. Loving this date. Welcome smiles and hug, exchanging books, unplanned, laughing, even giggles. Such chemistry. The women who just sat down next to me are on. Meanwhile, the poet at the mic doesn't take down her hood ever, while reciting vivid moments of trauma. Next poet talks of father's beatings, and another essay, penetration within relationship, not forced, but not welcome, and repeated. This is tough stuff. Men are not doing well here, and also a handful of women villains. The shift is then to poems of healing and growth, introspection and work. I smirk and say to myself, button poetry. Except that's what so often poetry is for. For so many, it's journaling, reflection, and working things out, to be celebrated when courageous folks share. I love when folks fresh from treatment, or still in it, as I was when I started, join and share, as they know how, having the language and motive to explain. Back at the date next to me, they're quiet, listening hard, leaning into each other. While the poems talk of strife between partners and growth is done alone, these two have the optimism of holding hands.